Hello, everyone, and welcome to another TipHaus Insider webinar. Very, very excited today to be joined by an amazing guest from one of the most famous Pacific Northwest restaurant groups, Anthony's. And today we're going to be chatting about how Anthony's was able to reclaim a lot of labor hours across 26 locations by automating their tip compliance. If this is your first time joining us on a webinar, or if it has been a while, we do always ask for some basic housekeeping items here. And just for your knowledge, there is a live chat Q&A. So on the right side of your screen, or maybe it's on the bottom of your screen, excuse me, mine may look different, but you will see a live chat. Feel free to please let us know where you're dialing in from today, where you're listening from. And we'd love to engage with you there. We will answer all questions at the end, although I do also have a live customer success rep that is on there to answer some of the questions along the journey in case there are too many to get through in that final 5-minute window or so. Additionally, it's the hospitality industry. Things may be literally or figuratively on fire. So if you have something to deal with, please go tackle that. We do not want you to be held up from your business. So we are recording. If you have registered, if you're here, you will be shared that recording after this call today. So do not fear if you have to jump off halfway through, or if something comes up and you got to take a quick 3-minute break, you're able to watch what you missed in the middle. There are resources that will be going on through this webinar. So please feel free. You'll see a QR code in the top left. There's a couple elements for that. So please feel free to scan as you go through. And last, but certainly not least, is for joining us. Every time we do a live webinar with it, we do offer a $50 Starbucks gift card. So with that being said, you are able to automatically be entered just by joining and registering, and you will get additional entries for asking questions to encourage some great communication from the audience here. So with that being said, those are just our basic housekeeping pieces. And now let's take a brief look at what we're getting into today. So as always, we'll go through our welcome. We'll kind of run through our basic items. We'll get to know both Aimee and Anthony's briefly here. We'll look at what they were doing and where they jumped to, understand a little bit about their earned tip access process, their payroll process, any kind of unique tricks or tips that they have as they vetted TipHaus and went through items. And then we will, of course, wrap up with some great Q&A, I'm hopeful. So without further ado, I will now introduce myself. And if you don't know me, if this is your first one, my name is Kirk Grogan. I am the COO and co-founder over here at TipHaus. And I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. And I am joined very, very thankfully by Aimee Ketola from Anthony's. She's our Director of Accounting and Information Systems and has been instrumental in working with us here at TipHaus. So Aimee, would you please kindly introduce yourself? Tell us what led you into the hospitality space and tell us a little bit about yourself and Anthony's.
Sure. Thank you, Kirk, for having me. So I started at Anthony's 18 years ago. I was in college. I was attending the University of Washington and was a server at our Shulshul location over in Ballard, if you know the Seattle area. Anthony's doesn't just hire talent, they grow it. So I was sent to the corporate office when they kind of realized that I was good at math and systems, and they sent me back to school to study accounting specifically, formally. And I'm now the Director of Accounting and Information Systems. So Anthony's, it says right here, we have 26 locations. We've been in the Pacific Northwest for over 50 years. So, yeah.
I love it. And I knew, I've known Anthony's takes care of itself. If you're from the PNW, you certainly know him. Even if you just visit, you almost certainly know Anthony's. They are prevalent, they are large, they are incredible and well-beloved in the PNW. But I did not know that they sent you back to school. Was that back at UW?
No, I think it was Edmonds College. Yeah.
That is awesome.
So, yeah, while working to do normal accounting. So, yeah.
A great place to do it. And excuse me if you answered it, but I actually didn't know. Did you start off serving, bartending, something like that? Or were you back in the office?
I was a server.
Nice.
Yep. So, when I think about, POS systems or tools like TipHaus, like I've experienced it kind of on all sides of the tool.
That's it. And good on them for figuring out your proclivity for math, and good on you for jumping with it. 18 years is incredible with it. So I love to hear that. So tell me a little bit here with it. So obviously you took your job seriously and you were looking around. What was the problem you identified when you were looking for a tip management process? What did you notice? How much time was going into it? Was energy? Was there errors? What were you looking to physically solve by trying to find a provider?
Yeah. So We had an internally developed system in place, and it worked for Anthony's really well for a really long time. But at the end of the day, at the end of each shift, servers and bartenders were still sitting down and doing like a hard copy server checkout. And so they're spending 8 to 9 minutes doing this like paper exercise, doing math, which is not everybody's strong suit or everybody's source of
maybe
joy.
10 minutes even.
And so we were just looking, we knew that there were 21st century tools at our, that we could shop. And so just looking to really streamline that process and get servers off of paper.
That makes perfect sense. And do you mind if I ask if that original system, was that an Excel sheet?
No.
No, good for you all. Something that we always catch is, who is your number one competitor? And believe it or not, it's Microsoft Excel.
It's Excel. No, we were a little bit more advanced than that. Yeah.
Hey, good on you with it. I love to hear it. And so, if you don't mind me, what led you all to choosing TipHaus? What pain point ultimately kind of crossed the threshold, or was it a combination of those items? But what really brought you to us?
Yeah, we looked at a lot of tools. And we actually stumbled across TipHaus at the Washington Restaurant Association recommendation, and did a call with you all. Loved your salesperson. And what I really loved about TipHaus that was different from the other tools was how highly configurable it is. In my role as the director of accounting, we've had to do a lot of system changes. And so I've seen a lot of tools. And the ability to which TipHaus can be unique to a customer's needs. So like we don't have to change how we operate to match a new tool was really, really strong.
I love it. Something we very much try to pride ourselves on is, as a server, change is never fun, right? We just assume, even at a place with fabulous management, I can say that knowing that Anthony's has fabulous management and ownership, even still, servers don't love change, no matter how you carve it. So I appreciate that with it, and always happy to see it. So you have, again, a number of locations you're trying to manage across it. Is this something that you were looking at in making sure that consistency is handled from a top-down tip perspective? Is this something each location has maybe different tip perspectives across it and you manipulate? Or is this something that you wanted to make sure that consistency across the brand? We handle tips like this every single door, every single location that's coming through.
There are, I guess it's kind of a mixed answer. So we want as much consistency as possible across all 26 locations so that a server assistant at one location is treated the same at another location. So that consistency, that trust. But we do have restaurants in different states with different laws, or we have restaurants that have multi-concepts and unique roles, and those unique roles need unique tips. And so TipHaus was really good at having consistency where we needed it, and then the ability to be individual when that was also needed.
I love it. And that makes perfect sense with it. And so when you brought in TipHaus, what changed operationally from you? Did you all have to manage a bunch of new processes? Was something very, very different to it? Or was it meant to just kind of hang with what you had and hold that steady?
Yeah, I think kind of the biggest change was a moment of like, that's it. Like we use Toast, which I don't think I've said, but the Toast and TipHaus integration is really strong. And so at the end of the night, they print their shift review, put their receipts in order. And then it's like, well, I'm used to sitting down and looking like this woman here in that first slide, but I just check out with my manager and that's it. So I think that's kind of, and then the bookkeeping the next day, there's not this like huge heavy lift of review to make sure, everything's compliant and consistent, so, and that however many servers across the location did their math right every day. So I think it was just kind of like some new space. Yeah.
I love it. And I appreciate that being the mindset of if that was it, then I think things have gone well. And shout out to I'm assuming you worked with John, right? Is John?
Yeah, John is great.
He is.
Yeah.
He's a PNW guy. He gets it. He loves Anthony. So always happy to spread some love. I know he does great things out there with the space. So tell me the results of it thus far, Aimee. Did you move from the woman on the left to the gentleman on the right? Have you seen a reduction on payroll errors, on tip disputes, manager headaches, or questions from them, anything like that?
Yeah, definitely a huge shift in the bookkeeping part of it. What used to take a bookkeeper, depending on the restaurant size and depending on the time of year, how busy we were, it could take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours to really review all the different server checkouts, is what we call them here, and making sure that all the tips are flowing through correctly. So that process has been taken down to like 2 minutes. So that's just a huge, simplification and streamline. Yeah.
I love it. And payroll processing itself, from a day-to-day perspective, is it just that review phase? Is there other items? Are there less manual reconciliations, anything on that realm? Or y'all pretty buttoned up, but excuse me, were you pretty buttoned up because of the time consumption according to it?
Yeah. I think we have always taken payroll really seriously. So I'd like to say we've always been buttoned up.
Ever since you got there, at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. But before, we would have payroll cycles that are 2 weeks. And really, like, our managers didn't have to sit down and review payroll super strictly every single day. But now with TipHaus, and now that we have the ETA, which we haven't talked about yet, but having the earned tip access, we have to make sure that our time and attendance is correct every single day. So it's kind of force functioning this daily review, which is really a great practice, great hygiene. And so it makes that 2-week payroll review much quicker because you've been doing it one day at a time, this whole payroll cycle.
I love it. Mistakes are much easier to catch the day of as opposed to once they're all jumbled together, right? It's something that we often hear as, well, do I have to review tips daily? And it's like, if you're paying tips out daily, you want to be reviewing them, there's nothing makes a team a little less trustworthy than getting paid the wrong. I guess if it's an overage, bank error in your favor, maybe it's okay. But generally, I'd say even then, they're questioning when the other shoe's going to drop, and they may be sure. So data hygiene's always important. It's something we work with our customers on, but I love to hear it, and I'm glad. And you brought up Earned Tip Access. Happy to dive into it with you.
Yeah, great. What a good transition.
So tell us about Earned Tip Access from your perspective. And for the audience, if you don't know, this was the number one feature request we had over many years. We were originally just a calculator. We would sit in the back and manage and make sure all the tips were accurate to our knowledge about what went on, but how they actually got paid was up to the management, whether that's payroll, cash in hand, whatever it might be. So we went and rolled out optionality. That was the number one thing we heard. And Aimee, I'm not sure the use case in your field with it, but what we heard continually was they wanted an option for underbanked individuals to be issued a card. They wanted individuals who already were established to go straight into their bank account. And maybe even some folks still wanted it on paycheck or wanted it in a traditional manner. So that was our effort to bring it out. But tell me, from your perspective, always curious, Aimee, tell me about Earned Tip Access. How has it helped your team? Do the employees engage with it? Is it something that makes sense for your team to offer daily tips?
As you said earlier in the call, servers do not like change. And I would even go further to say that most people don't like change in the restaurant industry. And one thing that this relates to is, in order to simplify that checkout process and to use TipHaus the way that we wanted to, we needed servers to turn in all their cash sales. And before, part of our process, part of that doing math at the end of the night, was doing a calculation of credit card tips versus cash sales, who keeps what, and now it's much more simple. And so in asking our servers to change that process and to turn in those cash sales, having the earned tip access, which now they're not walking with as much, they have access to their tips next day, was a really good trade-off for them.
I love it. That is something, I think back to, if you've attended a webinar before, I started my career at Chili's at 16, server at 18, went through it, but it was one of those things that I remember when I went into college, I took a different job. I wasn't at Chili's anymore, but I was still serving and bartending my way through. And it was the first time I ever encountered a place that didn't let you walk with your cash. And I'd wait 2 weeks for my tips, and that as a college kid, was not what I was looking for, right? I was trying to make sure I could go out and enjoy time with my friends or spend money on something that I forgot was certainly coming up, but it's
Mhm.
always an interesting piece, but I'm glad we're able to at least substitute that in with it. And run me through, we obviously, one of our core principles, something we very, very much pride ourselves on here at TipHaus, is transparency. Top to bottom, we want to make sure everybody knows what's going on. We view the lack of transparency as one of the stressors that helps to drive turnover in this industry, that you've got to make sure everyone's on the same page, everyone sees the total, that the math is accurate and proven, and there are no doubts left. Has that been your experience? Has tip transparency changed anything about manager and staff interactions, or around getting compensation questions, or even just thinking through what the staff is willing to go through?
Yeah. I think what I like transparency wise is when we onboard someone, whether they're support staff or, a server or bartender, we go over our tip policies. And so that is shared with them. But now with a TipHaus account, they can log in anytime. And those rules that are doing daily calculations are very easy for them to access. If they don't remember what happened on onboarding, or they don't have access to a manager or bookkeeper. So I like that the tip rules are very public. And then we did have reporting on who gets paid what. But it wasn't live and interactive like it is in the TipHaus account now. And so I think for most people, probably 95% of people, they would just get this like lump sum as a dishwasher. I got this much in this payroll, but I don't know what shifts that came from or which positions. And now you can see, like, on a ticket level, how much each support staff is getting. So I really like that ability to drill down.
I love it. And you're reminding me, I would go into the back office, at Chili's, and they would take, 2 pieces of paper, and they would hide everyone else's Excel row but mine. So I couldn't see their earnings, of course, but I'd be running the math of, I brought in $150 in tips, and I tip out 3% to the bartender and 1% to the food running. And I'm playing through this, and yeah, it makes sense. I think that I walk out with $115 of the $150 I earned, but maybe I don't have the math mind you do on that side with it, Aimee, or maybe it was just that, it was a little bit confusing on it, but
yeah.
I completely agree. Like, it should be something employees should be able to see at any time, because onboarding is, they're drinking through a fire hose, right? There's so much coming at them. They're trying to learn so many things and pay attention to it. And have you all shifted any of your tip structures now that you have live visibility into it, or do you think you got it pretty right and it's just a nice automated layer that sits over the top?
Have we changed our tip method, or what do you? I'm not sure.
Yeah, tip out percentages, tip pooling. Has any of that data led to you adjusting your tip policies, or is it just something that you feel, no, we don't need to change anything, we got it right, but we just wanted to make sure that the employees had access to it and the visibility there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we haven't changed any tip percentages. I would say the one thing, and this is getting really in the weeds, I'm kind of nerdy on these things, but with time of sale, which is an option that TipHaus offers. So just in case anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, that means that whoever's clocked in while a ticket is open gets a portion of that tip. And that's something that we didn't have the capability of doing beforehand. So we had to think of things in like a lunch shift and a dinner shift. And, so now we can really let the support staff, and we just have this all day rule. And naturally, whoever's on the clock when that ticket is open is tipped out. And so that's just kind of like a little bit of a paradigm shift. And it also is really nice. Another selling point to our servers as we as we roll out something new is, if there's no expo on the clock and you're running your own food, you're not tipping out the expo on that ticket. And so those kind of things are really nice.
I love it. I also love that as a co-founder in 8 years of explaining that you probably did it more succinctly than I've ever done with it, but you were spot on. Yeah. Time of sale is our proprietary piece that, we looked at how to make it fair. And you're exactly right. I always describe it as, it's a miniature tip sharing or tip pooling policy that only takes effect for each check. So you have hundreds of them stacked up. But you just jump straight to the outcome, which is you're only rewarding the individuals who are clocked in during the time that check was open. And I'll take a mental note there for myself in the future as I describe that. So thank you on that.
Yeah.
Looking at obviously some key takeaways here, and I want to dive into a couple with you. We have been able to work with you all, in nearly just shy of 1,200 hours a month that your staff is able to use on what I'll just deem more critical exercises, right? It is never the most important thing for them to be reviewing a sheet. Of course, those numbers have to be accurate, but there's guest engagement, there's satisfaction, there's employee training, there's management, there's restocking, there's inventory, there's a million items that can be better spent. And happy that y'all are experiencing those results with it. Of course, that is what we set out to do. There's some tip transparency to it. There's some next day tip access to it. So from that standpoint, however, I know multi-location operators often hear these pitches, right? This is all the things we can do for you and what it is. Would you run me through, did those come to fruition for you? Obviously, was that something you mentioned earlier? Maybe it was the biggest shock was that the onboarding was over and you were live quickly, but run me through even just the thought of it. Was this what you were hoping for? Or is this something that, kind of came out of left field for you and maybe some of these weren't even the intended results you were looking for?
No, I would say that TipHaus definitely delivered on the things that we were looking for. Yeah, I feel like I drink the Kool-Aid at TipHaus. Yes.
Well, thank you. As a Seattle headquartered company, we're always looking to make sure our PNW, our favorites, I've dined at Anthony's over the last 2 decades. So always happy to hear that. And you're making decisions. You get to see the idea on bringing in, whether it's new payment technologies, tip calculators like TipHaus, of course, payrolls, point of sales, items like that. What would you say? I know a lot of operators out there have had mixed experiences, whether there's a lot of hidden fees or unclear cost structures, or, they got sold on something that didn't quite perfectly work. But when you're talking to other operators that are looking to make a switch on any of those or a different software piece altogether, what are you evaluating? How are you kind of getting into the crux of it? And are there tips you have on how to avoid falling into any of those pitfalls?
Yeah. I have done a lot of shopping of different tools and rollouts, and some, every once in a while we try something we don't love. And I think the painful lessons that I've had to learn is make sure you negotiate with, your new company. If you have a large group like we do, make sure you pilot a location. Don't just do a Band-Aid. Okay, we're going live at all these locations at once. Make sure it really works for 1 or 2 pilot locations for a good, payroll cycle or accounting period to make sure it fits all the needs from beginning to end. And yeah, I think if there's a tool that lets you pilot, especially without signing a contract, that means that the tool is going to sell itself. And that's how TipHaus worked, so I think those are good signs. If they're like, oh no, you only get 30 days free, and then you have to commit to this very aggressive rollout plan, that's when you kind of get a little wary.
Of course. And
one more thing. Sorry.
Please.
The thing that I would do is ask your rep at that company for restaurant locations to talk to, or restaurant operators to talk to. If there's someone in your area that uses this tool, see if you can get that contact information, take them out for coffee or something, because that's where you're going to get your best truth on how things are going.
Agreed. I love that. And I don't know, but I'm curious if you'd reveal, Aimee, who did you chat with in the Seattle area?
Ivars.
Okay. Oh, good. Was it Patrick over there?
I think so. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
A good group, another famous seafood joint up there, but y'all two together, I think, combined to make the PNW experience what people think of when they think of the food side of it. So I love to hear that. And I cannot thank you enough for walking us through it. Any final parting thoughts for tips, tricks, anything to any other operators out there, whether it's when looking at onboarding softwares or whether it's even the tip management, the team side of things, anything that you'd like to say before we move into some Q&A and go through some questions here?
The other thing that I kind of, as I was going through what to talk about today, is if you're in my position and you're responsible for a rollout from a corporate seat, that's not in a restaurant. Sometimes it's easy to lose touch with what the restaurant side feels like. And so I would just make sure as you describe this new tool that's coming out, that you do that in person as much as possible, because restaurant people are people. And sending them an email with what's coming down the pipeline is not going to hit.
If it gets read at all, right?
Yeah.
I love that. And we just joked, I was at one of the larger conferences down in Orlando, and I mentioned to someone, I said, well, the thing about it is like the restaurant industry is one of the last in-person industries, right? Like restaurants can't sell to people that are 100 miles away or in another state. They're selling to people that are generally within a 10-mile radius or so of their location. And so you've got to build relationships. You've got to look people in the eye. You've got to shake hands still. But I love that approach. I think it's something, if you don't have the front of house experience of the restaurant, you've obviously grown up through restaurants, you've spent a career in it now, but I think a lot of people overlook the impact of those folks. And that's most of your guest full experience will only be with those individuals, right?
Yeah.
I don't think many guests pop back into the accounting office and start chatting with you, whether maybe you would enjoy that, but it's going to be those servers, those bartenders, those hosts. I love it. I love it. So, Aimee, thank you for sharing all of this. I know operators really, really appreciate listening to someone like you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you, everyone. And we'll send it off today. Thank you and take care.